On the other side of a storm is the strength that comes from navigating through it. Raise your sail and begin. Just because you're struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. I think sometimes people equate struggling with failure. It's not. It isn't even close. In fact, if you're struggling, it tells me that you're still in the game. We don't see these incredible opportunities first because every opportunity that you and I have is surrounded by a problem. I've never gone to an opportunity that I didn't have to go to the door of problems first. So the next time you have an obstacle, a difficulty, an adversity in your life, don't allow the crisis to numb you. Be alive, learn, feel, fail, learn. That's what it's all about if you want to make this difficult time a good time. I just want you to know that there's a hero within you. I know there is. And during this tough time, let the hero out. Let people see the best of you, your highest aspirations. You be the one who's the lifter and the encourager.
Hi, Mark Cole here. In the 20 years that I have been working alongside John Maxwell, we have never seen a time as critical as this for values-based, people-centered leadership. John Maxwell says that crisis separates pretenders from players. Always has, always will. That's the purpose of the Leadership When It Matters the Most series. John Maxwell has felt that in a time like this, that we need to be offering value and extending opportunity for people that want to make a difference. You see, crisis requires leadership that gives context, leadership that will step up and lead when others won't. Now, our goal is today in this time, as you spend a little time with us, that we add value to you so that you will multiply value to others. I hope that over the next few minutes, as John Maxwell shares a lesson that he has prepared for you right now, leadership when it matters the most, that you will take note, that you will take hope, and that you will take charge. Today is the day that in this crisis, you can make a significant difference. Now, it's my pleasure to bring to you John C. Maxwell.
Hey, John Maxwell back with you. I've really looked forward to our weekly times where, especially during the coronavirus, I just kind of talk to you about what's happening to us and how do we respond, especially as leaders, because we not only are responsible for ourselves, we're responsible for a lot of people. And I want to talk to you about how to maximize mentoring. And really, this comes out of a conversation that Mark Cole and I had together. You know, Mark is the CEO of the John Maxwell Enterprise. And Mark was sharing with me that during this crisis time that I'm mentoring him a little bit differently. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. And so I kind of asked him, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, John, he said, you're mentoring me a lot on perspective because how we view things is how we do things. And he said, you're really helping me to see a bigger picture than what the crisis is. Because remember this, crisis has a tendency to reduce the picture. It has a tendency for us to begin to go inward and say, oh my, it's happening to me, and it's probably the worst thing that's ever happened, and nobody's probably ever gone like this and gone through this before. And so Mark said, John, you're just constantly keeping a big picture perspective during the crisis for me. He said, secondly, you're just helping me with creativity. And the creativity is the fact that we've all had to change. A business is not as usual. In fact, for some businesses, not, period. So how do we get creative and what do we do when we can't do business as usual? So he said, you're helping me with the creativity. And then he said, thirdly, you're helping me balance realism and optimism. And, realism without optimism is so discouraging that we instead of leading together, we're going to have a wake together. And optimism without reality is pie in the sky. And there's that's not even That's not even right for a leader to do that in the fact of you have to give people not only a hope, but you also have to help them. And the hope is in the optimism, but the help is in the realism. And so he said, you're helping me with that balance there. And then he said, what's probably biggest difference is you're less instructive in your mentoring right now, and you're just more available. In other words, I'm just basically saying, Mark, this phone is, call me at any time. Whatever comes up, I'm just here to help you. And so I almost called this lesson mentoring during a crisis. And then I thought, you know what, that's a little too small. I've got to get a little bit bigger here. We are mentoring right in a crisis. I'm mentoring you today in a crisis. But there's a bigger picture there that not only will help us today in the crisis, but will help us tomorrow or when we're out of this. And so I'm just kind of excited about this lesson. I just developed it for you, and I hope it adds value to you, because there are 4 questions that you want to ask yourself to maximize mentoring in the relationship that you either have with people that you're mentoring or the person that's mentoring you. Here are the questions. Number 1, who mentors me? That's very important. It's not only what they say, but who says it. Now, all 4 of these questions I'm going to come back and teach on. Number 2, when do they mentor me? And the reason, obviously, that question is there is because timing is very important. And there are times when we're more receptive to mentoring than others. For example, during a crisis, we're much more receptive to what leaders have to say when we're in trouble than what they have to say when we seem to be going along real well. Question number 3 is how do they mentor me? I'm very excited about sharing this with you because I think this is meat and mentoring that very seldom any of us ever get. So I went inside myself a lot on this, and I just said, okay, how do I do it? And intuitively, how do I share with you how to really mentor people to get a maximum return for that person that you are sharing with? And then question number 4, how do I maximize the mentoring? How do I maximize the mentoring if I'm mentoring you? How do I maximize the mentoring if you're mentoring me? In other words, after we're done, we're not done. And that's the thing I think so many people never realize in success. They think that, okay, I just finished that, and they don't really appreciate nor value nor understand the return on what I would call sustained thinking. In other words, when everybody else is done thinking, if you'll stay with that thought a little bit longer, the odds are very high that you're going to get a better thought than the people that just kind of said, well, we're done. Anyway, so those are the 4 questions, and I think that this is going to be helpful. And so thanks for being with me. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope I help you. I hope you pass it on to others. So let's go to question number 1, who mentors me? I want to give you some questions to ask in picking the person or making sure that the person who mentors you is the right person. Because you see, there is the information that's given in mentoring. I mean, the knowledge that's passed on. But the reason that who is very important is that there's also a spirit in mentoring. There's an attitude. There's a soul in mentoring that really has us to stop and say, it's not only what I'm learning from this person. In fact, to be honest with you, I think every person is my teacher. And so whenever I'm with anyone, no matter who they are, no matter where I am, I'm always in kind of a student mode, because I know they have something that if I'm listening, asking enough questions, they're going to teach me. So that's for everybody. I mean, everybody can be a teacher to us. But when it really comes to somebody mentoring us, that who question is really an important question, because that there's the contagiousness of mentoring is more in the spirit of the person that mentors you than in the words that they give you. So here are the questions. Very simple. Let's go. When you're picking somebody to mentor you, have they been successful? Okay. And just to be honest with you, I really don't have much desire to have somebody mentor me that hasn't excelled in the area that they're mentoring me in, because I want them to be better, farther, smarter than I am. By the question, have they been successful, just put the word experience there, okay? Because that's an experience question. I mean, that's somebody that has had a track record of success under the belt. Question number 2, are they right now successful? Now, this is a little picky, but I think it needs to be mentioned because just like you put experience by the first question, put relevance by this. If they're successful right now, there is a relevance that they have that they wouldn't have if they had been there and done that. I been there and done that is the experience side. Been there and doing it is the relevance side. You got it. Question number 3. Have they been tested and have they passed? In other words, have they passed the crisis test? Because you really don't know if the principles and the values that you talk about really have strength and power and stability until you've been tested with it. And beside that question, have they been tested and have they passed that test, put the word wisdom. And the reason for that is wisdom comes out of crisis and what we've learned from it. Wisdom doesn't come out very seldom of the easy days we have. Wisdom it's forged out of that crisis that we go through, that through that, it's more than what we know, it's what we experience, it's all put together. That's where you get wisdom. Question number 4. Are they continually growing? I love this question. In fact, this is a big question for me on people that are mentoring me. I really want people to not only talk to me about what they have learned, I want them to talk to me about what they are learning. The difference is when they tell me what they've learned, I get experience. When they tell me what they're learning, I get passion. So this is a passion question. I want to be mentored by a person who is doing it right now, and they're growing right now. And there's something about the contagiousness of that in a mentoring role that is absent with a person that has grown, but they stopped growing. In fact, I can still remember a very important mentor in my life, very important mentor. I can still remember the day where we sat down and we were in a mentoring session, and all of a sudden the realization, it just hit me like a brick. It just hit me. We're having this mentoring session, and I look at this person that I greatly love, who has helped me in incredible ways, and I say to myself, they've stopped growing. They're repeating themselves. I was sad all afternoon because I had just outgrown my mentor. And I just never wanted to do that. I always wanted that person to be ahead of me, before me, bigger than me. So that's a great question. Are they continually growing? And the next one, are they emotionally grounded? I not only want somebody that has all the qualifications I've talked to, but I want somebody that's solid. And the reason I ask the question, are they emotionally grounded, because I'm giving you one word by the questions, that word's perspective, by the way, is because dysfunctional leaders, and we're getting more dysfunction in leadership and in our culture all the time. Dysfunctional leaders lead out of their issues instead of out of a good perspective. You show me a person that is emotionally challenged and dysfunctional, and I'll show you a person who leads according to what their needs are, not according to what the big picture is. So are they emotionally grounded? Question number, 6, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6. Question number 6. Are they my sponsor? Now, I'm going to have to explain that one because there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A mentor is pouring into my life and helping me, but a sponsor is doing more than pouring into my life and helping me. They're backing me up. They're in my corner. They fight my fights for me. The word by sponsor is the word commitment. I've had a lot of mentors. I've had very few sponsors, but I've had a few. In fact, about a year and a half ago, Tom Phillippe Sr. passed away, and he was a huge sponsor from the time I was 33. I mean, for about almost, not quite, 40 years of my life, he was my sponsor, which meant when I was a young leader, he carried weight for me. He paved the way for me. He was the John the Baptist. He fought for me when I wasn't there. He was always in my corner, and he was more than a mentor. He was a sponsor. He basically said, that's my boy. And you can't touch him, and I'm going to protect him, and I'm going to serve him, and I'm going to constantly look out for him. And if he's with me or if he's not with me, it doesn't matter. It's my boy. We're all fortunate if we can have a few sponsors in our life. I've been very blessed. I've had a few, not a lot, but boy, the few I've had made a big difference in my life. The last question goes back to really why I ask who is mentoring me, and that this question's huge, and that is, do they have a greatness that's bigger than their work? Now, you don't hear about this when we talk about mentoring. This is seldom ever discussed, but I'm telling you, it's absolutely essential. This is going back to who mentors me. Most of the other questions I've asked really are questions that we quite understand, but this one, that their greatness is bigger than their work. I'm talking about, what word do I use for that one? Their spirit. The persona maybe, but I think persona gets too wrapped up with charisma, and I don't like that because that's not where we're going here. I think I can illustrate it maybe better than even give you the right word. I had the privilege for about 12 years to be mentored by John Wooden. Life-changing. If I had to list mentors, he would be at the top of the list. And he taught me incredible things. I just live everyday principles he taught me in leadership. I remember the first time when I left him after a mentoring session, and he was in a little condominium, and we went down the elevator. I went down the elevator. He stayed in this condo, and I went to a little parking garage, and then the visitors parked out on the outside. And so I'm walking in my car, and I'm just about to open the door of my car, and I just had this intuitive feeling to turn around, and I turned around, and I looked up, and on the little balcony where Coach Wooden lived, he was standing there, and he was watching me the whole time. And he was waiting for me to turn around. He didn't call my name out. He didn't even say anything. He was just standing there. He was watching a person that he had just spent 4 hours with. And I turned around and I looked up, and I'll never forget, he had that incredible smile of his and that wave. And I got in the car. And I said, I was with a great teacher today, but I was with a greater man than I was a great teacher. Wow. That's huge. That's mentoring that changes life. So, okay, maximizing mentor. Who mentors me? That's question number one. Now, when do they mentor me? Great question. If you were in my home office, just to the 10 feet from where I sit at my desk, there's a couple shelves of books. And those books are books that have marked my life. They are there on purpose because at some time in my life, I read them. They marked me. They changed me. They transformed me. These were life-changing books for me. I mean, they're not a lot. I really haven't counted them, but I'm going to guess 25. And I've probably read 10,000 books. I've read a lot of books. But these were books that marked me, and every once in a while I'll just go over and pull one out and sit down and look at it for a little bit, and it's just a comforting feeling because they have been great friends of mine. Now, here's what I want you to say. All those books over there that marked my life, there's one word that keeps all of them on the shelf together and that word is timing. And here's what I want to make sure we really catch this. I pick up those books now and I read them. And in fact, sometimes I look and I say, well, that wasn't that great of a book. I mean, it's a good book, but wow, that's over in the marked me section. But then I take myself back to when I read the book. And here's what all those books have one thing in common: timing. You see, I read that book when that book spoke to right where I was in the timing of my journey. And so it was a great book, maybe not because it was a great book. It was a great book because the timing was right. That book was giving me what I needed for right now. That's why when we ask the question, when do they mentor us? That's a great question. Because sometimes you could hear the mentor say the same words, but the timing wasn't quite right, so they wouldn't have the same impact. You know, crisis. The reason I'm talking about it now is we're in a crisis. I think this is a huge time to mentor people because I think they're receptive to leadership. I think they're receptive to a crisis. And crisis, what does it do? It moves people. It changes people. It takes people out of their comfort zone. In fact, that's one of the reasons I told Mark, I'm available to you. I'm just close to the phone. Why? Because he's leading in uncharted territory. The waves are moving on him. And so availability is huge. But timing is so key. In fact, that's why we're doing these lessons here. This is a timing time. We're all looking for answers. We're all looking as leaders for resources. I mean, the things I'm giving you, I'm assuming you're not only applying them to your life, but you're passing them on. That's why the John Maxwell Enterprise is making this available to you. It's a timing issue. When do they mentor? Here's what I do know. This could be in a teaching in itself. I'm just going to give you the quote because I got to move on. Most of the things we want, but we don't have them. We want them, but we don't have them. Most of the things we want but don't have are just outside our comfort zone. Trust me on that. And so what does a crisis do? It moves us. And it sometimes moves us out of the comfort zone. That's one of the benefits of a crisis. If you're getting moved out of your comfort zone, if you have a good perspective about that, and you're willing to learn out of that comfort zone, and you're willing to look for opportunity out of that comfort zone, there are some good things that happen. So who mentors me? That's the contagiousness of the spirit of the person. When do they mentor me? Timing is so important. What's the statement? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Okay, that's just, you got it. You got it. Question number 3. How do they mentor me? In this part, I'm going to really talk about, I'm going to talk about mentoring in a crisis, okay? This one's probably the most crisis-related of the 3 questions. So how do I mentor people right now? Number 1, they give me perspective. During a crisis time, what that mentor will do more than anything else is they'll help us continually see the whole picture. Because in a crisis, we see our picture. And they constantly are expanding us, because what do leaders do? Leaders see more than others see. They see before others see, so they see this whole big picture. It's what I did a few weeks ago. Perhaps you're with me. We had over 1 million people with us. But it's what I did a few weeks ago when I talked about leading during a crisis. And one of the things I did is I said a crisis is quite common. Now, I wasn't trying to undermine or underestimate the coronavirus. I wasn't doing that at all. But what I was trying to do is to help everybody understand that this isn't the first crisis, won't be the last crisis. It's not even the biggest crisis. It's just a crisis. But the tendency is that for emotions to rule during a crisis to where we think that what we're in right now is the worst thing that's ever happened, and it's never happened before, and it's never been so bad, and it's just not true. My good friend Simon Sinek, we were texting back and forth the other day, and he said, "John, listen to this," and he sent me a great podcast. And basically on it, he was talking to his team. And one of the things he said is, he said to them, these are not unprecedented times. In other words, I want you to know, Simon's saying to his team, don't ever think that like this is the biggest, worst thing that's ever happened and I happen to be living during it and I'm right in the middle of it. You see, when we're in a crisis, the number one question people are asking right now is how do we get through this? You know, my gosh, how long is it going to last? How am I going to get through it? Am I going to make it? See, the question shouldn't be, how am I going to get through this? The question should be, how am I going to get better because of this? How am I going to improve? When the crisis is over, do I come out better or do I come out bitter? And wow, that's a huge issue. And so I want to get perspective in the crisis. I want to make sure that we have reality, but we also have hope. Alan Malawi, a wonderful friend, was the CEO that turned Ford Motor Company around. I mean, it's an incredible story. I think it's called the book, The American Dream. I read it. It's a thick book, but it's an incredible story. And when they were bleeding billions of dollars and Ford was in trouble, and there was a lot of emotion, and they were in a huge crisis. And Alan Malawi's calming influence through all of this. I mean, every day they're checking to see where they are, and are they going backwards still, or are they starting to slow the tide down? And his phrase he continually used was, "It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. We're going to make it. It's okay, it's okay." Well, all Alan Malai was doing is he was just giving perspective. He was not only giving perspective, he was showing perspective in a crisis. So how do they mentor me? Well, the first thing, they give me perspective. Number two, they share out of their personal life. Now, this one I just am passionate about, and I want to do a good job. I hope I do a good job for you. What I'm saying here is when I talk about they share out of their personal life, most mentoring is telling, where if I'm mentoring you, I sit down and you would maybe ask questions, and I tell you what I've learned and those type of things. And kind of telling is where you sit down and I tell you what I think you need to know. Sharing, and we're talking about sharing out of our personal life. Sharing is where instead of you sit down, I kind of tell you what I think you probably need to know. If I share with you, I say, you know what, just here, sit right beside me. Sit right beside me, okay? And I want you to sit beside me because I want you to experience what I experience. I want you to feel what I feel. I want you to see what I see. I want you to watch me as we're in this crisis. It's the power of proximity to a great extent, but sharing basically is inclusive. It's not, I know something you don't know, I'm going to teach you, although mentoring has that, no question about it. It's kind of like, I'm going to let you on the inside. I'm going to let you see me. It's what I tell communicators all the time. And leaders, do you want fans or friends? If I want fans, I'm going to constantly make sure that my level of excellence is so far above yours that you just can applaud me, but you can say, wow, that man is amazing, but I can never achieve what he achieves. That's the kind of leader that wants fans. If I want friends, I'm going to walk slowly through the crowd. I'm going to have this sharing spirit. I'm going to basically say, Come with me. You can see me. You can see me in my strengths. You can see me in my weaknesses. You can see me with my questions and doubts. You can see me when I'm strong. Just here, sit beside me. Sit beside me. That's powerful mentoring. And in this crisis, that example that you show people is just going to be huge in really developing them well. So, when I have you sit beside me, there are three things I'm going to just make sure that you partake in this journey. One is the source of my strength. If you sit beside me, I want you to see me go to the source. Now, I want to have to stop here for a moment and just say to you, you know this already, but I really always try to keep fairness with all of my friends because I love everybody unconditionally, People that don't have my viewpoints, people that don't have my faith, it doesn't matter. You couldn't stop me from loving you if you tried. Okay, I love you unconditionally, but I am a person of faith. So if you were with me, I would take you to my source of strength. I would take you to the well that I go to where I draw the water. And for me, it's my faith. It's my relationship with God. Every day I'm reading Psalm 112. And the reason I'm reading it is because it's fantastic, and I not only read it, but I pray it. And again, let me just say to you, just close, put your fingers in your ears. You don't want to hear this, but I'm only going to be here for a moment. My name's John. You know you can trust me. I'm your friend. Always have been your friend. But when you read Scripture, it's wonderful. But when you pray Scripture, you put yourself in it. You put yourself in it. And I'm just going to just give me a moment because in Psalm 112, and I'm not going to read all of it. I'm just going to read just a couple, 3 verses. When darkness overcomes me, now see, I'm praying this. I put myself into the Scripture now. When darkness overcomes me, light will come bursting in. I will be kind, merciful, generous, and fair as I conduct my business so that all goes well with me. I will not be overthrown by evil circumstances. God's constant care for me will make a deep impression on all who see it, and I do not fear bad news nor live in dread of what may happen, for I have settled in my mind that God will take care of me. And that's why I'm not afraid, but I can calmly face my foes. I will give generously to those in need. My deeds will not be forgotten, and I shall have influence and honor. I love that. I have settled in my mind that God will take care of me. That's my source of strength. In fact, when I am with my beautiful friends that I dearly love, and they're not people of faith, sometimes I look at them and just say, I just wish you had my faith. I'm not trying to convert you. I just wish you had my faith. Because That's where my strength is. That's where my peace is. That's where my joy is. I mean, if you have something that helps you, you want it to help others. And so anyway, I'm done. I'm done with that. I'm just saying to you that in mentoring in tough times, as they sit beside you and you're sharing, you got to let them know where your source is. And your source may not be God. It may not be Scripture. But what's your source? Where do you go for strength? Because you have to have a source that anchors and stabilizes you so you can do that for others. You cannot give what you do not have. Just can't do it. The second thing that I want to do when I'm mentoring a person during a crisis is I want to share with them what I'm experiencing, my emotions. I want to be raw with them, and that's why I want them beside me. See, if I teach them later, I may skip some of my negative emotions because can I tell you, for example, with the coronavirus, I was over in Israel when it started hitting the world and hitting the United States, and my first emotion to this was anger. I was just mad. And the reason I was angry is because I thought there's a lot of emotional people that are leading, and now the leaders are going to have to respond to a bunch of fearful people. Now, I'm not saying that's the right perspective. It certainly is an emotional perspective, and it was a negative with me because I was angry about it. But if you're beside me, I'm going to tell you I'm angry about this. I don't like it. And then I got really frustrated because as I got back and everything began to cancel, all of a sudden the next 2.5 months, my schedule was all messed up, and I lost. I lost all kind of times when I could help people and add value to them. And one of my losses was I was supposed to go to the Vatican at the end of this month, and Pope Francis had given me the invitation to speak with him on leadership, and we were going to have a master class with the Pope, and all that was gone. And so I was extremely frustrated, and I was disappointed. Okay. But I had positive emotions too. I was invigorated. I mean, I don't mean this unkindly, but during a difficult time, the darkest time is when the leader goes, touchdown, hello, this is why I'm born. This is what I do. This is what I was born for this. So it's invigorating me because it keeps me in my leadership zone all the time. And I have creative emotions because I know there's an answer. So I'm looking for that answer. And I'm grateful right now because I have forced rest time, and it's helped me with my health. And I have a book on transformation, Change Your World, that I've needed to write, and now I've got time to write it. So anyway, but let them sit beside you and let them feel the emotions that you're going through. They need to see that. They need to see your good days, but they need to see your bad days. Remember, people don't want a perfect leader. They want an authentic leader. They'll connect with you. If you want to impress people, talk about your success. But if you want to impact people, talk about your failures. They'll let them in the seat beside you. Let them be close to you at this time. So I'm going to share with you what my source is during difficult times. I'm going to share with you what I'm experiencing emotionally during these difficult times. And the third thing I'm going to share with you is what I'm learning. Because there are tremendous lessons to be learned, and I'm working real hard every day saying, okay, what am I learning? So when somebody comes and says, they talk to me about a failure in their life, I care for them, so I listen to their failure. But honestly, as soon as they're done telling about the mess up they've had in their life, the question I have for them is, well, what did you learn? Because the value of failure is us learning something that changes us. So, I started putting some things down on my notes on what I'm learning. I don't have time to give all of them to you, but let me just give a few of them. For example, a crisis will prioritize for us what we won't prioritize for ourselves. That's true. This coronavirus has taken all the stuff that we've been doing, and it's just very quickly said, okay, now what's really important? What's really important? I mean, whether it's going back to values and family, or whether it's going back to relationships we have in life. I mean, what's really important? A crisis just moves us around, and all those priorities, some of those things that we thought was so important, we realize now that wasn't that important. So if we don't prioritize our life, then a crisis or something difficult has to come to kind of shuffle us around so we can look and say, what's really important to me? Another thing I'm learning is that uncertainty causes really more stress than bad news. I give the analogy of going to the airport and wanting to catch a plane when we could go to the airport and get a plane. And so you get there and you get to the gate and you realize the plane's late and you have maybe a connecting flight. And so immediately you ask yourself, can I still get on this delayed flight and make my connecting flight? And so for maybe the next 15 minutes, you're just kind of uncertain and your stress level goes up because you're not really sure this is going to take on time. And everything's in the air. Everything's uncertain. You just don't know. Well, let's say they all of a sudden come over the intercom and they basically say, look, this plane now is going to start even later than we thought. And so they give us a time. And the time they gave us, we realize, oh, okay, that's horrible news. I'm not going to make that connecting flight. But the stress level goes down when you know you're not going to make the connecting flight. The bad news is less stress on you than not knowing what's going to happen. Because now that the bad news has happened, you say, okay, now I've got to make alternative plans. It's back into my control. Uncertainty, what makes uncertainty so difficult for us is that it's out of our control. We can't do anything about it. Another lesson that I'm just loving and learning and teaching is that respect is gained on difficult ground. It really is. If you're a leader, and you lead well during this crisis for your people, can I tell you something? When you come out of that crisis, the respect they have for you will just heighten. The highest authority is not positional authority, it's moral authority. And moral authority is truly when you have been proven, tested, and you have done extremely well. After a while, you have an authority that's beyond any kind of legal ramifications. You have an authority that people just say, I follow that person because they've been tested and I've watched them being tested. If everything worthwhile is uphill, and it is, and it looks like this during a crisis, it's like this. Well, let me tell you something. If you can get through that crisis and lead through that crisis and help people get through that crisis, you're going to gain respect. You're going to come out of this with more respect from the people that you lead and more authority than you've ever had. Another lesson I'm just practicing every day is it's from the scripture, but it doesn't matter. It applies to you too. And that is give thanks in all circumstances. Boy, that's a relevant word, isn't it? Give thanks in all circumstances. It doesn't say give thanks because you're in a bad situation, but just give thanks because you're in it. In all circumstances, no matter what it is, because it's going to, with the right perspective, it's going to make you and I better. Boy, a lesson I'm learning right now is a crisis lets me know that if my living and my talking match. I write books, I teach, and I give principles out. But when a crisis comes, all those things I teach that just sound good that you write them down, they're getting tested now. I mean, are my values truly great values? It's going to be tested during the crisis. Are my principles and the truth that I teach and embrace, is it real truth? Wow. Well, there are other things I have here, but time's kind of getting away from me, and so it's wow. Well, okay, I'll give you just one more. Now, this is personal. I probably shouldn't give it to you because I need to have time to teach on it. I don't have time to teach on it, but I'm going to just put it in as a thought for you. It's good to realize that we're not in control. And it's bad that a crisis has to remind us of that fact. What a crisis does is it humbles us. I know for a fact after 9/11, because literally after 9/11, that next Saturday, I did a huge simulcast across America called America Prays, and I raised over $6 million in 5 minutes for that situation, and I put it through I put it through World Vision. I didn't put it through my nonprofit. I wanted to have a arm's length from it so everybody know I'm not getting anything out of it myself. And so we raised $6 million, and literally the next week, I'm in New York City being led by the leaders of New York City because of what we had done. So I'm going through these areas, and I'm seeing the smoldering in everything that's happening, and so I'm watching, I'm observing it, and in that process is while I'm watching it, while I'm observing it, there was a sense of humility among those New Yorkers like I have never seen before in my life. And I'm just telling you, it's good for me, it's good for you. It's good for all of us to realize that we don't always have the answers. We're not quite as big as we think we are. We're not quite as important as we think we are. And that we need faith and we need relationships. And that we are our brother's keeper. These are just things that center us and get us back to basic good values that are valuable. Okay, let me just wrap this up with the last question, okay? We've asked 3 maximizing mentoring questions. Who mentors me? When do they mentor me? How do they mentor me? I hope this is really helpful to you. I'm enjoying teaching. I hope it's applicable to where you are. Question number 4 is, how do I maximize the mentoring? And so what I'm going to share with you is 3 things, and because of time, I don't really have a lot of time to get into this. Maybe on another time I'll go deep in it. But I'm going to give you 3 words, and if you'll remember these 3 words and practice them, you'll maximize every mentoring experience you have. The first word is preparation. The second word is reflection. And the third word is action. Preparation, all's well that begins well. You preparing before you meet the person that you're mentoring is going to make a huge difference in their lives. I remember the first time I had the opportunity to have a mentoring session with John Wooden, my question more than the other question was, will it be a good enough session that he will ask me to come back and do another session with him? I read every book that he had written. I wrote down questions for him on a legal pad, 5 pages of questions. When I flew out for a 2-hour breakfast at his favorite breakfast place, we sat across each other in a booth. We had small talk for 10 or 15 minutes. He said, "John, do you have any questions?" I said, "I sure do, Coach." I reached in my briefcase. I put my legal pad on the table in front of him. He saw the whole page was full of questions. He looked at me and said, "Oh, my, you've come prepared. You've got a whole page of questions. Are those all for me?" I said, "Well, yes, they are, but those aren't all the questions." He said, "What do you mean?" I turned to the second page. It was full. The third page, it was full. Fourth page, it was full. Fifth page, it was full. I said, "I have 5 pages. I've got a lot of questions. You're going to really be able to help me. I know we can't get through all of them, but can we get started?" He said, "Well, let's get started right now." We got started right now. We left the breakfast table, went to his house by his invitation, and I left him at 4 o'clock that afternoon. And he looked at me and said, "John, we're only through page 1. You got 4 pages. Could we meet again?" We sure can. Preparation. All's well that begins well. Reflection. All's well that ends well. I had 5 pages of questions, but at the end of that day, I had 8 pages of notes. Now what do? Within 24 hours, I sit down and I take those notes and I begin to categorize those notes. Again, this is a whole teaching in itself. What do I need to apply? And I put all the application stuff I need to apply that he taught me there. And what do I need to change in my life? What did he say that I said, "Oops, got to do a U-turn here. I was doing that wrong." Or maybe I hadn't even started. Maybe I need to change from not going to going. And so I put all the C's, the change things together. And then, okay, what do I need to teach others? Okay, I put all the T things there. And so I now, okay, these are my application. This is the things I change. These are the things I teach. That's all reflection. Now you see, I've got a personal growth program. I'm going to take maybe number 1A, number 1C, number 1T, and I'm going to practice that for a couple of weeks. And so now which brings me to the third word, action. You see, there's no transformation. There's no change without action. So there you go. Those are the 4 questions. You got them. Now what you'll do with them is you'll increase them and make them better than I gave them to you. But I want you to go out and find somebody to mentor during this crisis, or go sit at the feet of somebody that needs to mentor you, and think of these 4 questions and start maximizing your time with people. Why? Because you're important. And the more you maximize what you learn, the more you maximize how you can help other people. My name's John, and I'm your friend. Love and blessings.
Thanks for being with us today on the Leadership When It Matters the Most program. I hope John encouraged you in your leadership just like he encouraged me. Our goal in this time of crisis is to come alongside you, add value to you so you can multiply value to others. If you go to johnmaxwell.com, you'll find free resources, tools that will help you lead in these very unique times. You'll find our podcast, John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, Minute with Maxwell, a daily word that John will bring to you, as well as our leadership blog. All of those resources on johnmaxwell.com, and they are free and ready for you to encourage you as well as you encourage others. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon when leadership matters the most.